Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Around the nation right here, TYT Nation. Jeff Waldorf here with you. A little late today, but I had a lot of stuff to get ready for today's show, so it's going to be a big show today. We're going to talk about Wayne LaPierre, the NRA. We got Donald Trump and his listening session. You're going to love that. On guns. We're going to talk about, let's see, lots of stuff. A little bit of foreign policy. I don't generally tend to do much of that, but we'll talk about that. We got debt prisons, I should say, for debt collection. And then we also have the gubernatorial race in Michigan, what's going on there, all sorts of stuff. So we got a ton of shit for you guys today. So let's jump into it. First off, please like and share, especially share. Get this stream out to everybody so we can get more viewers. That helps the show immensely. And again, thank you to the patrons, patreon.com/TYTNation. Another thing that helps out is the super chat. So if you could use that or be a patron or just share, all that stuff absolutely helps the show. All right, let's get into it. We got stories. Let's do this. Boom. All right. So yesterday, President Trump met with the families of the 17 people that were killed in the Florida shooting, as well as survivors of that shooting, in what is being described as a listening session. All right, great. Hey, Donald Trump, he's listening to you guys. He's listening. Now, apparently, he does not know how to respond to listening, but no worries. He has notes. In fact, Washington Post photographer Ricky Cariotti captured this image of President Trump's notes. All right. Hey, you can kind of make that out, right? Oh, number 4, resources, ideas. But wait, what's number 5? I hear you. Wait a minute. That's weird. So you need a reminder to tell people that you hear them. Look, I know when I first saw this story, I was extremely skeptical. I was like, no, there's no way. There's no way that can be real, right? No, it's real. He has to be reminded to listen to other people, to be able to empathize with other people. And look, that's Trump. You look at the picture, right? And I'm going to show you why this is true. You notice the 45 in his cufflink? Only Donald Trump is tacky enough to do that. So that's my proof there, okay? But look, it's real, and he has to have notes to remind him to empathize with other human beings, especially after a tragedy. But that's who Donald Trump is. He's somebody who doesn't understand. He doesn't have empathy, doesn't possess natural empathy of other human beings, so of course his staff has to write him reminders. I'm surprised that Trump hasn't already attacked the students. Now, Donald Jr. has actually attacked the students, retweeting things like that, called them crisis actors and all sorts of crazy stuff. Oh my God, false flag, trying to steal your guns, crisis actor, the victims are not real, they're not real. That shows how much empathy that entire family seems to have for other people. But there it is. Look, even the first one is a reminder that Trump should empathize. Look, he wrote down, what would you most want me to know about your experience? So, obviously, the experience is terrible. Do something about it. Do something about it. Like, I don't know, do some gun control. And to be fair, Donald Trump is considering some gun control measures, banning bump stocks, raising the eligibility age, and increasing background checks, things like that. But you have to have 2 bullet points dedicated to making sure the President of the United States could empathize with the victims and end up hearing their positions. I know this shouldn't surprise anybody, but yet, at the same time, it kind of does, and how sad it actually is. So there you go. That is both fun and depressing at the same time. Okay, moving on. I absolutely love this. Now, Cameron Kasky is a student at Stoneman Douglas High School. Now, he's actually one of the survivors of the Parkland shooting that happened in Florida. Now, CNN recently held a town hall on guns. And so Kasky had a chance to ask Marco Rubio, senator from Florida, about that and about what he would actually do on guns. And actually, Kasky brought up a really, really important question. I want you to listen to that now.
But during the last...
That is not him.
Senator Rubio, can you tell me right now that you will not accept a single donation from the NRA in the future? I wish I could have asked the NRA lady a question. I wish the NRA lady I could have talked to, because I would ask her how she can look in the mirror, considering the fact that she has children, but, you know, maybe she avoids those.
What is that? I'm sorry?
I don't freaking know.
That's okay.
The question is about NRA money.
So, number one, the positions I hold on these issues of the Second Amendment, I've held since the day I entered office in the city of West Miami as an elected official. Number two, no, the answer to the question is that people buy into my agenda. And I do support the Second Amendment. And I also support the right of you and everyone here to be able to go to school and be safe. And I do support any law that would keep guns out of the hands of a deranged killer. And that's why I support the things that I have stood for and fought for during my time there.
More NRA money? More NRA money?
That is the wrong way to look. First of all, the answer is people buy into my agenda.
You could say no.
Number second, well,
Guys,
the influence of any group,
we're going to be here all night.
The influence of these groups comes not from money. The influence comes from the millions of people that agree with the agenda. So the millions of Americans that support the NRA and who support gun rights groups.
Senator. Guys.
Oh, no, I'm not influenced at all by money. God, he's such a politician. Giving bullshit. Well, people buy into my agenda, too. Just like they buy into everyone else's. Well, you know how much they bought into your agenda? $3 million worth. You were given $3 million total, or over $300 million from the NRA in order to hold those positions. Apparently, it's super cheap to buy a congressman. As I said, $3 million. And look, man, you notice crowd's not on Rubio's side, but you might just be able to dismiss that. Well, it's CNN, so yeah, of course they're all going to be gun-grabbing libs, right? But look, Rubio has shown throughout this entire thing apathy and cowardice. When all you give is thoughts and prayers, that's what you're doing. You're giving apathy, okay? To modify an old saying, you can do thoughts and prayers in one hand and spit in the other, see which one ends up being more full, okay? And look, that's what Marco Rubio and the Republicans' plans are. Thoughts and prayers, thoughts and prayers. I want to go back to what David Jolly had said. Let me show you that video here of what Republicans actually plan to do.
Let's be brutally honest about what we do know, and I say this as a Republican. Republicans will never do anything on gun control. Consider last summer you had Republican members of Congress shot and nearly killed during a softball practice, and they did nothing. After the Pulse nightclub, Democrats had a sit-in in the House. Republicans did nothing. After Vegas, hundreds injured, over 50 killed. Republicans did nothing. The idea of gun policy in the Republican Party is to try to get a speaking slot at the NRA and prove to that constituency that you're further right than generations past of Republicans have been on guns. And there's a disconnect with the American people and the heartbreak of the American people tonight. And so if this is the issue that defines your ideology as a voter, there are two things I would suggest tonight.
Okay, so basically you laid it out. Republicans aren't going to do anything. And that's exactly what Marco Rubio has done. Nothing. He's refused to back an assault weapons ban, which would include AR-15 style rifles, and also refused to ban high-capacity magazines. Now, he points out a couple of things. Well, you know, there are a couple of things that I'm against, or that I'm for, that the NRA is not in favor of. For example, raising the eligibility age of being able to buy a rifle to 21. I'm gonna look at that, right? Well, that wouldn't have anything to do with it, and plus mental health. Mental health doesn't cause mass shootings. It's the guns. But anyway, I got one more video for you guys about the money, and this is more fun Rubio dodging. Let's take a look.
Ultimately, that is not our goal here. Our goal here is to move forward.
Wait, so hold on. So right now, in the name of 17 people, you cannot ask the NRA to keep their money out of your campaign?
I think in the name of 17 people, I can pledge to you that I will support any law that will prevent a killer like this.
No, but I'm talking
getting
NRA money.
No, because...
matter of fact, I bet we can get people in here to give you exactly as much money as the NRA would have.
But it's not. I understand. And you're right.
Can you stand up and donate to that real quick? Okay, not a lot, but we'll get it.
It's all about the money, man. It's all about the money. Again, he takes millions of dollars from the NRA, and his constituency loves the NRA. They love the gun manufacturers. And so Rubio, you can see he's in a little bit of a tough spot because that's who he serves. It's so simple. Young people, we can all see it. And our young people are a lot smarter than we give them credit for. And yeah, there are jokes all around about, young people eating Tide Pods and all that stuff and whatever. But really, when it comes down to it, the next generation is a lot more politically active and politically savvy and smarter than we give them credit for. And these leaders, these kids, Emma Gonzalez, David Hogg, Cameron Kasky, these people are engaged. These people are smart. They've woken up, and they're looking to change the conversation. They have stepped up to be leaders when a lot of people wouldn't. They're asking hard questions, and they're not taking political bullshit, which is exactly what Marco Rubio was trying to serve up there. I mean, you saw that, right? He wouldn't stop questioning him on the money. You're going to stop taking the money? You're going to stop being corrupt? You're going to stop being the NRA's bitch? And he's like, well, no, I'm not. I'm going to dodge the question. I'm going to avoid answering this because that's the hard question. It's all about money. So, look, great for these kids. They're not dumb. They're engaged. And a lot of them are going to be ready to vote come 2018 or 2020. So watch out. Young people are coming. Okay. Moving on. Now, NRA CEO Wayne LaPierre does not think that guns are the problem in this country. No, he thinks the real problem is socialism. Watch.
Decade, the Obama decade, but during the last decade, the Obama decade, many of those leaders have been forced out as a tidal wave of new European-style socialists seized control of the Democratic Party. And socialism is a movement that loves to smear. Racist, misogynist, sexist, xenophobe, and more. These are the weapons and vitriol these character assassinations scream to permanently hang on their targets and create a growing segment of victims. Because socialism feeds off manipulated victims. You name the group, and they will find a way to turn them into victims. They keep their movement growing by finding someone to be offended by something every minute of every day. From the Occupy movement to Black Lives Matter to Antifa, they agitate the offended, promote uncivil discourse, and ignore any sense of due process and fairness to destroy their enemies. The elimination of due process is the very gold standard of the socialist state.
Look, I don't know where to begin on this one, man, because that is one enormous load of horse shit. So, first of all, socialism loves it when you smear people as racist, misogynist, sexist, xenophobes. No, no. The reason that we call people racist, misogynists, sexist, and xenophobes usually is because they are those things. If you're saying derogatory things about women, for example, based on the fact that they're just women, then yeah, that's sexist, right? If you're saying, I don't like black people because they're black and they're more violent, that's racist, okay? Look, I shouldn't have to point these things out. That's not socialism. Okay. But anyway, he says this is weapons, that they're weapons. We've weaponized the words. So what we've weaponized the words apparently, but don't worry, you guys got the guns. Well, which hurts more? Guns or words? I await your answer. It's ridiculous. And finally, socialism feeds off manipulated victims. Victims. And now everybody's a victim. But wait a minute, you're the biggest victim person that's trying to purport themselves to be a victim in the room. Oh my God, they're coming after us. The socialists are coming after our gun rights when gun rights have not been stronger. I mean, we literally have a constitutional amendment that enshrines people's right to have a gun. You cannot get a much stronger protection than in the Constitution. So this is a constitutional right. That does not mean that it's unlimited, as there are many courts that have actually limited certain constitutional amendments. But the fact is that the amendment is still there, and you still have the right to have a gun. But of course, Wayne LaPierre, and there's a reason to this, right? There's a reason that he's going, oh my God, it's the blacks, it's the socialists, it's the Antifa. They're all coming after us. They're having uncivil discourse. Are you saying that your feelings are hurt? Would you like a safe space, Mr. LaPierre? It appears that you have one. In fact, your entire speech there, the CPAC, is one gigantic safe space, which, by the way, is a gun-free zone. Just saying, you don't like gun-free zones? Well, then maybe you shouldn't make CPAC a gun-free zone. Maybe you should allow every crazy right-wing nut job who goes to CPAC open carry. Oh, you don't want to do it for some reason. Gee, I wonder why. Maybe it's the guns. Maybe it's the guns. No. Furthermore, he continues, and I don't have video for this part. He said, the growing socialist state dreams of manipulating school children to squeeze them all for information about their parents. Do mommy and daddy own a gun? And all this private information will be entered onto that ultimate list. Here we go. The gun confiscation list. He says that cloud of data storage. And then it's just a short hop to the systemic destruction of our basic freedoms in this country. Okay, classic slippery slope fallacy. Check. He says, if these so-called European socialists take over the House and the Senate, and God forbid they win the White House again, our American freedoms will be lost forever. And the first to go will be the Second Amendment to the Constitution. Don't elect Democrats, there goes your freedom. May I remind you that Republicans in Florida just voted to declare porn a health crisis so that they can later on ban it. Conservatives ban books. To be fair, there are liberals also that ban books, and it's ridiculous. Oh no, let's see, these books have racism in it, therefore we have to ban it. No, you show that, right? You allow people to read that to expose the attitudes of that historical time period. But I'm getting too granular here, so I just want to make clear: censorship in any form, completely wrong. I hate it when the left does it, and I especially hate it when the right does it. But on Republicans trying to take away rights and ban things, right? Ken Cuccinelli once ran on banning blowjobs. I mean, come on, you want to talk about limiting people's freedom? It's Republicans mostly that want to limit freedom. For example, the freedom to vote. They do voter ID laws. They do voter suppression tactics. They limit speech rights by assigning people to free speech zones. They arrest people for doing protest. Yes, there are actually Republicans in 18 states that are pushing voter suppression laws. Or, I'm sorry, a lot more states than 18 states, but there are also Republicans in 18 states pushing anti-protest laws. Now, those anti-protest laws, I think that they're a direct attack on our First Amendment. So, but please tell me more about how the Democrats don't want to take your freedoms. Now, finally, he says, let's be clear, we are never talking about an armed resistance against the socialist corruption in our government. Ha, ha, ha. We are always talking about a resistance armed with the United States Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Socialist corruption, my ass. Socialist takeover, my ass. I wish the Democratic Party was half as socialist as the right makes them out to be. Maybe we actually might get Medicare for all and strong labor rights. But we don't have any of that. No, it's neoliberalism. And look, the corruption, speaking of neoliberalism, by the way, the corruption is Wayne LaPierre. The NRA gives millions of dollars to our elected officials in the form of campaign bribes. You want to talk about the elites? Look, Wayne LaPierre makes $970,000 a year. Get the fuck out of here with that elite shit. Oh, the elites want to take your rights. You're the elite. You're the elite. You're making all this money. No. Look, Wayne LaPierre, at the end of the day, he does not care about freedom. No, what he cares about is money. Gun sales. He is paid for by the gun manufacturers to represent them. This entire speech was nothing more than off-the-wall, conspiracy-laden bullshit. And it was meant to be that way to rile people up and to make them afraid. Oh my God, the socialists are coming. We better buy more guns. Why? Why would you need to buy more guns? But look, more gun sales equal, obviously, more money. More money for the gun manufacturers. More money that ends up in Wayne LaPierre's pocket. He is completely corrupt. He doesn't give a fuck about your kids. He doesn't give a fuck about the Second Amendment or the First Amendment or the Constitution. No. Only cares about is the money. It's the money. Follow the money. That's not socialist corruption. That's capitalism. And if capitalism means profiting off the deaths of children or allowing these gigantic gun manufacturers to profit off the deaths of kids, I don't want any part of it. So, fuck you, Wayne LaPierre. You're the problem. Ain't nothing else. Okay. Assholes, man. They're all assholes. Okay. Let's switch gears here to get away from the gun problem, and we'll go into military adventurism, courtesy of USA. Okay. Now, according to Reuters, 15 people were recently killed by an airstrike by the Saudi-led coalition in northern Yemen. This is according to people who live in that area. They said this aircraft had hit 2 cars that were transporting passengers and a truck on a main road south of the provincial capital. They said that 15 people were killed while several other people were wounded. They also said that the explosions damaged the main road linking the capital and the northern province, where the Houthi tribe controls much of northern Yemen. So, now the coalition, which includes Saudi Arabia, of course, they have intervened in Yemen in 2015 against the Houthis. Now, the Houthis are friends of Iran. Now, Iran isn't exactly our friends. I think that's fairly obvious. They have a fundamentalist-controlled government. But Saudi Arabia also has a fundamentalist-controlled monarchy. So here we are getting in the middle of a conflict between 2 different sects of religious fundamentalists. Wonderful. Great. Now, the Houthis, of course, ousted the government of President Abd Rabbu Mansur Hadi. And so apparently that's why Saudi Arabia does not like them, because they want to have more power in the region. And, of course, since we're allies of Saudi Arabia, now we're involved. So now they said, the coalition, they said, oh, well, we don't kill civilians in our strikes. We got to make sure. Now, whenever they say, a government says, oh, don't worry, we made sure not to kill civilians, odds are they have killed civilians. Unfortunately, according to Reuters, coalition airstrikes have struck civilian targets while trying to target Houthi forces in the past 3 years. Now, the reason that this is important, the reason that I want to bring this up, not only because somebody in the audience had suggested it, as a reminder that, yes, we are at war. We are at war. We are still at war in different places. We are helping fundamentalist governments in different places, bomb people. Yes, we don't necessarily agree with the Houthis, but fuck, man, we're bombing people. And why? Why are we doing so? And not only that, but look, we're talking about this because we're the ones that are supplying Saudi weapons. So we're selling weapons to Saudi Arabia, and these are their weapons that are going to kill civilians. In fact, look at the stat. The war in Yemen so far has killed 10,000 people and displaced more than 2 million, and now the country, thanks to the conflict, is on the verge of famine. Oh, but you know, hey, look, we got to help our Saudi Arabian allies. Look, why are we involved? We got to get out of there. And let me tell you the reason why we're not, why we are involved. Actually, there are a couple of reasons. For one, cheap oil. We have an arrangement with the Saudi Arabian government to arm them in exchange for cheap oil. That's why they're our allies. They'll sell us cheap oil. And that's it. I mean, again, that's one of them, right? One of the reasons. The other reason is defense contractors. They want to sell weapons. They want to sell arms. And so Saudi Arabia wants to buy our weapons, wants to buy our arms, so they can go and bomb Houthis. That's money for our defense contractors. So cheap oil, defense contractors. Yeah, but Jeff, the Iranians they're terrible. They're bad people, and Saudi Arabia's against the Iranians. So we gotta help them. Well, the thing is, look, we shouldn't get involved in those different sectarian conflicts. And on the Iran issue, look, yes, Iran is dangerous. They're a fundamentalist government. They oppress their own people. It's all incredibly terrible. But Saudi Arabia does the same thing. They also oppress their people. They barely just started letting their women drive. They also behead people for witchcraft. They whip and kill journalists. Come on, dude. There ain't no good guys in this story. And we're especially not good guys because we're arming other bad guys. So, but again, we're there. We're there not because of, oh, well, we need to protect our interests, spread democracy. Yes, we're protecting our interests. Our interests are oil. And that's it. Oil and regional alliances. We want to get an advantage against potential enemies in the Middle East. So that's what we're doing here. But look, I don't want to be there, especially for the oil. And there's ways where there is a way where we don't have to do stuff like this. And it's called getting off oil. We don't need their oil. We can go to alternative energy. We can completely change our energy infrastructure to solar and wind and geothermal. And then guess what? We wouldn't have to get involved in these conflicts. We wouldn't have to overthrow leaders or give horrible countries like Saudi Arabia weapons in exchange for access to cheap oil. Wouldn't that be an amazing thing? We could actually rely on the sun and the wind and geothermal energy geothermal for our energy. Things that don't actually run out. And we could stop aiding governments or killing people ourselves with our own weapons for access to these resources. But of course, fossil fuel companies, defense contractors, and corrupt governments in the Middle East, they don't want us to do that. They want us to be involved because we're the biggest arms supplier in the entire fucking world. Our government's controlled by neoconservatives and oil interests. And they both use the same thing to get what they want. Endless war for money, whether it be endless war to feed the military-industrial complex, as we do, or endless war to free up resources that private corporations can scoop up and sell for profit. That's what's going on here. That's why we're there. And unfortunately, that is why we're never going to leave. It doesn't matter how many innocent civilians are killed in these different countries or how many governments we destabilize, or how many strongman governments we put into power, we're going to be there because guess what? It's all about the money. Okay. Let me take a quick break here. I know it feels like I just got started with the show, but I need a quick break here. We'll be back. We got more stories. We got debt collection companies. We got the gubernatorial race in Michigan. And then we have the newest plan by Ajit Pai to fuck people over. So you're not going to want to miss this. We'll be right back. Around the Nation. All right, everybody, welcome back to the show. Around the Nation right here, TYT Nation, Jeff Waldorf. Please give us a like and a share. Really, really important that you do that. Helps us get the show out. So, thank you for doing that. Let's get going. We got more stories. Nope, that's not it. There we go. All right. A new report out by the ACLU is revealing how the private debt collection industry has been able to use America's court system in order to target poor people. Now, according to this new report, private debt collection agencies have managed to manipulate our court system in order to have people thrown in jail for their inability to pay off their debts. Now, they find that the agencies are able to do this by filing lawsuits. Now, you file a lawsuit, and if you're a defendant and you can't go to court, well, then normally they end up winning the case, the person who brings that lawsuit, which is usually the debt collector. Now, after that, debt collectors will ask the court to compel a debtor to appear for judgment debtor examinations. If they do not show up, the debt collectors will often ask the judge to issue a civil warrant so that the debtor can be arrested. So here we go, debtors' prisons. Now, debtors' prisons have been outlawed in the United States since the 1800s. But apparently, thanks to this public-private partnership, debtors' prisons are back. Now, some of you might say, well, oh, great. You know what? You took the debt, then you're going to have to deal with the consequences for not paying off that debt. Well, there's a few things wrong with that argument. According to the ACLU, many of the people who don't show up don't do so because they want to ignore the debt. No, it's because they can't. Let me give you an example. They said our investigation is according to Jennifer Turner, human rights researcher for the ACLU's Human Rights Program. She writes, our investigation found that many people missed their court dates because of work, childcare responsibilities, lack of transportation, physical disability, illness, or because they didn't even receive notification of that court date. So going to court, especially if you're a poor person, it's hard to do. You're working 2 or 3 jobs. You don't have childcare. You don't have a car. Very, very difficult to get to court over debt collection, which you were unable because you were too poor to pay off in the first place. Now, they found, among other cases, but 2 cases in which elderly women missed their hearings because they were terminally ill. They died shortly after warrants were issued for their arrest. Jesus. Hey, she's terminally ill. Doesn't matter. She didn't pay. She has to pay. She's got to pay these private corporations that now she has a debt for. We went to the court. We went through the legal system. Sad day for you. It doesn't matter if she's terminally ill. It matters she has cancer. She's got to pay up or she goes to jail. Go to jail. Jesus, man. I thought we banned this shit, but it's back, and it's bad. According to Turner, the threat of arrest is an incredibly powerful tactic now used by many debt collectors. Now, in a separate piece for the ACLU, Turner wrote that courts have become mills for these companies, approving, without even evaluating scores of arrest warrants, wage garnishments, property seizures, default judgments, and other legal action against consumers accused by debt collectors of owing money. Now, look, some of these debts aren't even valid in some cases. There are debts, some people report, that had been paid off maybe 10 years prior that are getting dredged back up by these debt collectors, and these people end up getting taken to court over those debts that aren't even legitimate. And not only that, but the debt collection industry, again, it's an industry of fraud, for one, because there are many people, many collectors that buy this debt from companies that have already written this debt off. They either get special tax cuts or tax incentives to write these debts off, or I should say tax breaks, not incentives, or they set aside large pools of money to be able to write these expenses off, these debts. So not only that, but these companies are able to do that, or they do that so that they'll be able to sell this debt for pennies on the dollar to these debt collection companies. So that's how they can sell it off for so little. Now, these companies, they buy it up, and then they ask for the full amount or nearly the full amount of that debt, plus fees and whatever. And they said, oh, don't worry, we can give you a deal. Well, why do you think they can give you a deal? It's because they barely paid anything for that debt in the first place. So that's how they make a profit. That's how these predatory companies actually work. Now, the ACLU included a number of stories of people's lives who were ruined by this partnership between private debt collectors and the court system. So prepare for some really sad stories. For one, the first one, who was a mother of 3 in Indiana, she was jailed for missing hearings over medical bills for her cancer treatment. They said that she was physically unable to climb the stairs to the women's section of the jail, so she was held in a men's mental health unit. So this is somebody who was too sick to be able to go to the hearings for amassing debt from her cancer treatments. She was jailed for not being able to afford to pay off her cancer treatments. That's gross. Cancer. That is barbaric. This is barbarism. Holy hell, man. There's absolutely no fucking excuse as to why they could do this to her. Cancer is bad enough. And it's expensive. And look, this is why a for-profit healthcare system is so immoral. And that's what these kind of situations are, what make this public-private partnership between the courts and debt collection companies, so heinous. Disgusting, man. We need Medicare for all. Now, that's not the only medical debt-related story. A Georgia woman was arrested while caring for her terminally ill mother. A debt collection company had bought a 6-year-old rental debt her landlord claimed she owned after evicting her from her trailer home. Now, again, how's this related to medical debt? Well, your mother's terminally ill. That's not cheap, okay? Paying to take care of a loved one 24/7, not a cheap thing. So I'm guessing most of her money went into that and not to paying back some of that old rental debt. So again, here's another situation where somebody could have benefited from a system that Medicare for all, but instead, because of our brutal system, our barbaric system, ended up getting forced into debt, losing their place, then getting sued for that debt, and having to go to jail. Jesus. Here's another one. And this is non-medical related. In Missouri, a single mother of a toddler took out a high-interest payday loan of $425. She was unable to pay that back, and the creditor sued. She did not go to court and ended up getting jailed and arrested and jailed for 3 days. So, now you might think, oh, come on, she took out the loan, she knew what she was going to pay. Well, a lot of these predatory payday loan or payday lenders, they can charge, especially thanks to the Trump administration, interest rates of up to 900%. That 425 can turn into a lot more money very, very quickly. And situations get out of control. Look, you're already in a bad enough situation for having to take out a payday loan. They target people who are low income, who need cash, whether to fix their car or, take care of some sort of emergency situation. These people, they take out the loan because they're desperate. That's why they're willing to pay 100%, 300%, 900% interest. But then something else happens, you can't pay that, and in some places, you end up going to jail. Disastrous, man. And by the way, putting people in jail doesn't really do any good. How are they supposed to repay the debts if they're in jail? It doesn't make any sense. But there's one more story here, and I think this encapsulates how bad it really is. A Utah man committed suicide for failing to appear in court. Now, why did he have to go to court? Well, apparently he had a health issue and took an ambulance. So he ended up having to pay for that ambulance, which is actually incredibly expensive. But he couldn't afford to pay it. So what happened? Well, he ended up going to jail. While in jail, he committed suicide. Shortly after he was asked whether he had the money to post bail or not. All those stories, man, heartbreaking. And of course, a lot of these stories, most of them, are for medical debt. Something that doesn't exist in other countries. We're the only industrialized country that actually has people going to debt for getting cancer or for taking an ambulance. We're barbarians. What the hell is wrong with us as a country? How can we do this to our own fucking people? I mean, throwing them into jail, putting them into situations where they're saddled with debt for the rest of their lives. They can't get under it. And then, of course, they keep going to jail because they can't afford that debt. They lose their job. They lose any chance of being able to repay that debt. And what happens? They're now stuck in prison. Debtors' prison. This is disgusting. Look, as far as the medical debt goes, open it up already. Medicare for all. That's the answer. I mean, we got people going to jail for not being able to afford to pay off their ambulance. You know how much those ambulances cost? There's a 2-mile trip that was reported. Somebody had a 2-mile trip to the hospital. It cost them $2,700. You've got to be fucking kidding me. And of course, insurance, even if you have insurance, Doesn't necessarily mean that's going to cover the entire ambulance ride. But on that, again, we can do something about that. Medicare for all. Just open it up. Just open it up. Let us in. Let us all in. All right. But on the bigger point here, public-private partnerships between courts and corporations, that is deeply un-American. And look, this is neoliberalism. This is the enemy. This is what's going on in our country, where you have private corporations suing people, forcing them into court, and then, well, when you don't show up for court, well, then we're going to have to put you in jail. It's completely disgusting. This is corporations taking over the state. We have a word for that. And look, there's a reason that this keeps happening, right? The corporations are squeezing us for everything that we have. I mean, people are going to debt. I mean, look at the reasons why. Our wages are stagnant. We have no guaranteed health care for all. We have no worker protections anymore. Republicans and corporate Democrats have cut that. They no longer support labor unions. You've got college costs that are up over 1,000% than what they were back in the 1960s and 1970s. They're crushing us, man. We literally have the boot of neoliberalism at our throats. How much more are we going to take of this system before we rise up and change it? We got to get rid of these corporatists. We got to vote them out. We got to get them out now. Then we got to get the money out. If we don't, we're going to keep getting crushed. So we got to fight back, man. We've got to fight back. We got to change the system. Okay. Another health-related story. Health insurance giant Blue Cross and Blue Shield is now openly backing one of Michigan's Democratic gubernatorial candidates. Now, the race right now is in a primary. There is actually a very contentious primary here in Michigan for who's going to take on whoever the Republicans put up for governor. Now, one of the candidates is Gretchen Whitmer. Now, she is currently running in a primary against several other opponents, one of them being Abdul Al-Said. Now, Abdul Al-Said, he's progressive. He actually has a plan to enact single-payer health care for everyone in Michigan. Hell yeah. I'm definitely in favor of that. I'm with that. Now, Whitmer, she is more of your centrist Democrat, right? Your centrist establishment Democrat. She was a former Senate Democratic leader, and she supports fixing the ACA, whatever that means. Now, these two, again, the contrast could not be clear enough. Single payer versus private health insurance. Well, there's a reason that she is for private health insurance, and that's because private health insurance is for her. The Intercept is reporting, thanks to Z. Jelani, that on official Whitmer letterhead, BluesPack, the company's corporate fundraising vehicle, had blasted out an invitation for a major fundraiser on March 7th. Now, this fundraiser would be for, of course, people who work for Blue Cross Blue Shield. Now, they said in the mailer, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan plays a major role in Michigan's economy and the health of Michigan's citizens. The vibrancy of Michigan's economic climate is driven by public policy put forward by our state's governor, and we believe Gretchen Whitmer will be a great leader for Michigan. Now, the invite is signed by Linda Rossi, Executive Vice President of Strategy, Government, and Public Affairs at Blue Cross Blue Shield, Michigan. Now, the Intercept notes that while the invite is signed by these lobbyists, senior lobbyists with the insurance company, the mailer is actually being paid for by Gretchen Whitmer's campaign. Oh, wait a minute. So you have a campaign that is paying for a mailer, an invitation to a fundraiser held by lobbyists in order to get people who are inside the company to go and donate to Gretchen Whitmer's campaign. Fascinating. So, now, The Intercept also notes that Blue Cross spokeswoman Helen Stojic confirmed to The Intercept that the Whitmer campaign paid for the mailer, but only did so in coordination with BluesPAC. They said the letter was paid for by the Whitmer campaign. BluesPAC gave one-time permission to the campaign to use addresses of BluesPAC members to invite them to the event. The event is hosted by the officers of BluesPAC, not BluesPAC itself. Now, that actually turns out to be an interesting distinction because there are laws in Michigan where these PACs can't actually directly give to a candidate. So they have to have their members, they do a little workaround by appealing to their members and getting them to donate to a candidate of their choice. Now, they said the officers believe that her background in the state legislature has provided her with a good understanding of the state's needs, including concern about the health of Michigan residents. The officers provided an opportunity for BluesPAC members to attend the event. Okay, so I got a couple of thoughts on that line before we go forward. First of all, her background in the state legislature, which is mainly Republican-controlled and pretty right-wing, does not understand the state's needs. What the state needs is Medicare. Now, her teaming up with Blue Cross Blue Shield, a for-profit health insurance company, also tends to send the message that she's not with the American people on Medicare for All, which over 60% of Americans approve of and actually want to see expanded. Medicare is one of the most popular programs in America. And again, over 60% of Americans want to see Medicare expanded to everybody. They support Bernie Sanders' plan. And Bernie Sanders, by the way, won Michigan in the primary. Very exciting. It's actually fairly close because Clinton was expected to be the winner, but of course there are many people in Michigan who are like, hey, I like Bernie Sanders' platform. I like the fact that he's calling for Medicare for all. So that shows that anybody who's touting that has a pretty good chance of actually winning the nomination and winning the election. But anyway, as I said, Blue Cross and Blue Shield, their needs right now are to make more profit off the citizenry by continuing this for-profit system. So again, that's why we're there with Gretchen Whitmer. Oh, we're going to fix the ACA. How are you going to do that? You can't fix what is fundamentally a flawed system. And don't get me wrong, ACA has actually helped a lot of people. It's helped myself. It has helped family members. But at the end of the day, it is incomplete. It is based off a flawed system, a for-profit health insurance model, where we should have a single-payer guarantee of health care. Not access to health care, but guaranteed health care for all citizens. Now, I have one more piece of this. This is, again, another statement from Blue Cross spokeswoman Helen Stojic. She told the Detroit News, quote, while BluesPAC does not formally endorse candidates, it periodically provides its members with an opportunity to directly support candidates for elective office. And this is one of those opportunities. Since in Michigan, of course, there are laws that prevent corporations from directly donating to state candidates. And again, they're trying to tell their employees, hey man, look, you should probably vote for Gretchen Whitmer. Well, now why would health insurance employees want to vote for Gretchen Whitmer? Well, it's because, look, to be honest, their jobs would be on the line. Yes, the insurance industry, there will be job losses in the insurance industry under a single-payer system. So, look, I wouldn't be surprised that some of these people, self-interest, I can understand that. Nobody wants to lose their job. Would go, oh, look at that. Somebody who is for keeping the status quo. But the thing is, unfortunately, things need to change. We need to get rid of, maybe not get rid of health insurance companies, but greatly diminish their role by replacing the system that we have now with a single-payer healthcare system that guarantees coverage for every single American. That is a much better system. And yes, I know, I understand that it will cost jobs. But unfortunately, that is the price of actual progress, and it will actually save people's lives. And the people that will lose their job, they'll end up benefiting as well because they'll no longer be tied to a job. They'll have health insurance. They'll have health care no matter where they go, no matter what job they have. So, now that said, I don't know if I should give you this one more quote here. This is Annie Ellison, communications director for Whitmer's campaign. Now, she offered a short statement to The Intercept saying that, hey, man, look, it's not fair to point out that we're against single payer. I mean, yes, we are, because we're more in favor of the current system, but look at what we've done. In fact, she says, the campaign has built support from a large, broad coalition of people who are ready for a governor who will fix the roads, connect Michiganders to good-paying jobs, and put people first. As Senate Democratic leader, Whitmer brokered the deal with a Republican governor to expand health care to 680,000 people through the Medicaid expansion because she'll work with everyone who wants to solve problems and take on anyone who stands in our way to increase access to quality, affordable health care for every Michigander. So there's a couple of things in there. For one, I'll work with anybody. I'll work with the Republicans to make sure that you never have single payer. And that's what I get from that. And then, of course, she says, we want to increase access to quality, affordable health insurance or health care for every Michigander. That's the problem. We don't want access to health care. We just want health care. We want to go to the doctor when we're sick and not have to worry about a copay. Okay? We want to make sure that we can get access to medication. Or not access to medication, that we're able to get medication when we need it. I know too many people, myself included, right, that will hold off visits to the doctor because, hey, man, look, it's too expensive. I can't afford that shit. I can't afford to go. I know people who've stretched out their medications because they can't afford it. Even with insurance, the copays are way too high. Now, Gretchen Whitmer, her campaign is fine with the status quo. It's fine with that system. And the reason is because her campaign gets funded by these special interests. She's interested in the status quo and in not having any sort of actual fundamental change, which is what we need in this country. We need to open up Medicare for all. Now, look. The great thing about this upcoming primary in a lot of different places is that we have a lot of progressive options. There are candidates that are running sometimes against each other that also are talking about, hey, let's do Medicare for all. Now, Saeed, he's one of the guys in this race that's pushing for it. That's pushing for Medicare for all, for single payer here in Michigan. And I think that's wonderful to see different politicians that are pushing for this. But you're also going to see politicians from the other side that are pushing from the right that are going to say, no, our system is fine. We got to keep for-profit health care. And as I said, Whitmer is one of those people. Okay. One more story. Yeah, we're continuing on this theme from yesterday. Everybody's favorite internet villain, Ajit Pai, is at it again. This time, he's now trying to kill a program that helps poor people afford the internet. As if, taking away net neutrality, which happens on today, isn't bad enough. He, of course, wants to make it even more difficult for poor people to access the internet. Now, what this refers to specifically is something called the Lifeline program. Now, the Lifeline program was actually a program that's been around for a long time. It was created under Ronald Reagan. Now, the Reagan administration said, okay, let's do something for poor people so they can go and access landlines. if they need it, even if they can't afford it. It's a good start. It was also expanded later on in the Bush presidency to cell phones. Now, what's interesting is that Republicans, they'll go and look back on this program and call it Obama phones. Oh, we're going to give you Obama phones now. It's part of the Lifeline program. No, actually, if you go back into history long enough, it's actually a Bush phone. Because George W. Bush, under that administration, they're the ones that actually expanded the Lifeline program to cover cell phones. But anyway, that's where that comes from. So now back in 2016, they took the Lifeline program and they said, okay, look, here's what we're going to do. We're going to make it more efficient and we're going to make it cheaper. Now, how are we going to do this? Well, for one, we're going to go the neoliberal for-profit option, which means we're going to bring in competition. Now, some of this mandated, that at least 9 different companies be able to go in and compete with each other for these subsidies. So this is a government subsidy. This is government giving you money to be able to help you afford your cell phone plan. Okay. Now, in 2016, they also mandated the creation of the National Lifeline Eligibility Verifier System to make sure that only those eligible to receive Lifeline are able to do so. And this happened under President Obama and Tom Wheeler. So the reason they did this, we want to save money, we want to cut down on waste, fraud, and abuse. Funny how we get these kind of reforms under a Democrat. But anyway, now one good thing that they did during these changes in 2016 is that they began to shift the Lifeline subsidy to include broadband internet access. Now that is a positive step in one direction. But some of you might be thinking, but Jeff, why do poor people need broadband internet? I mean, why should we pay for these lazy bastards to sit around and Netflix and chill on our money, on our dime? Go get a job, losers. But wait a minute here. The problem is that in this modern world, an internet connection is necessary. So, for example, there's a lot of most employers require you to fill out applications online. And according to FCC member Jessica Rosenworcel, she is a commissioner, homework assigned to 7 out of 10 K through 12 students in the U.S. now requires internet access. So if you don't have the internet, you can't do your homework. That's crazy. When I was growing up, we didn't have that. Now in schools these days, an internet connection is required to even do your schoolwork. So, and again, people have to have the internet to get jobs. And look, also it allows you to keep up with family members, communicate and things like that. But again, the main point of this is to help people get connected with different careers and to be able to, actually move up and be able to afford things. But anyway, so, look, personally, I believe that the access to information should be a fundamental right in America. We have gotten to that point where, yes, internet is a right. It is so ingrained in our society now that you need it to function in society. So that's what I think. Now, we don't do that, and it shows when you look at the data. For example, according to Pew Research, a little over half of American adults with household incomes under $30,000 have a home broadband connection, and 1 in 3 have a smartphone. And you may think, smartphone, what do you need a smartphone for? Well, again, smartphone is able to connect you to employers. It actually does have internet access, which actually allows you to fill out things like applications and things like that. So again, it's one of those devices that is multi-use, that is unfortunately necessary in today's society. So, as I said before, the FCC in 2016 modernized the Lifeline program to give broadband, and it actually gives them a $9.25 subsidy for communication services. It's not very much, but it is something. Now, when they did that, there was one commissioner that was very, very unhappy about all this free shit we were giving to the poor. And of course, it's Ajit Pai. Very, very unhappy. So he threw a fit. He's like, why are we giving poor people all this stuff? No, there's corruption in the FCC system because we're giving all this money to poor people. I would like to give it to the corporations, and I would like to give the corporations every single advantage they can. So, of course, now that he's chairman of the FCC, that's exactly what he's doing. According to Wired, Pai is now proposing to make changes that will destroy the Lifeline program overall. Not overtly, he can't just cancel the Lifeline program, but he is making changes to it that would, for one, discourage people from signing up, actually make it more difficult, and also cut the competition, which would raise prices and make the subsidy worth far less than it is currently now. So he's undoing a lot of these Obama-era changes and is making the program, as I said, worth far less. Now, let me give you some of the examples here. For one, Pai proposes to make the Lifeline subsidy available only to those companies that own their facilities. For example, wires, towers, and other infrastructure that make up networks. And the problem is that 75% of Lifeline customers get their service from businesses that resell capacity of companies like Sprint and T-Mobile. So this is going to benefit larger companies, obviously, at the expense of the consumer, because it's going to get rid of some of this competition. Joe, imagine that. Ajit Pai helping out giant telecommunications companies. Where have we seen that before? Crazy. Now, they also go after what they call waste, fraud, and abuse. And so doing that, Pai has introduced a series of hurdles that would prevent people from easily signing up for the program. So, hey, government, we don't like government bureaucracy unless it comes to signing up for Lifeline programs or food stamps or things like that. So that's what Pai is doing. He's putting bureaucratic hurdles and red tape in the way of people being able to sign up for this program. Now, finally, he wants to place a hard cap on the budget of $2.25 billion and has actually questioned of, hey, why do we need that much? Maybe you should give us less, Republican Congress, because we don't really need that much. No, 90% of that budget is used. And so, okay, maybe we can take off 10%, and then maybe we can take off 10% more. But no, most of that budget is used to provide Lifeline service for poor people who need it. So, again, they're going to cut the budget. They're looking at cutting the budget. That will, of course, reduce the amount of subsidies. And with the lack of competition, that's going to make the subsidies worth less. So, at a certain point, people are no longer going to bother. And then that'll give them the justification to axe the program for good. And then they can shovel that money off to God knows where. This is how this game is played. This is how Ajit Pai is working to mess up the internet. Not only the internet, but mess with poor people's livelihoods and their ability to get jobs and communicate and to go online. This is what it's all about, man. What a dick. That's all I have to say. All right. That's it. That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you for watching. If you haven't already, please give us a like. You can subscribe to our channel as well. We're about to hit 71,000 subscribers, so I'm going to get that silver play button. You better believe it. So we're going to hit 100,000 one of these days, and it's because of you guys. All right. Thank you again for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Like us on Facebook at our page and all that stuff. So, all right, everybody. Love you guys. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, everybody. We'll see y'all tomorrow.